Hello, my name is Crystal Petry, and you are watching another episode of the Crystal Petry Podcast, Season 3. Leadership doesn't make you immune to trauma, it often hides it. In this episode, we explore what it really means to be a trauma informed coach, working with executive ministers and high level leaders, and why healing beneath the surface is essential for sustainable influence. This conversation challenges how we define strength, leadership, and what it truly takes to lead well. Welcome to the podcast, Macea Whisettse.
Thank you, Crystal. That was perfect. Thank you. It's good to be here.
I am excited to have you on here, Macea, because I've had leadership coaches and people that work and have lived in that space, but never on the trauma side of it.
Really?
So
I'm
you are
honored.
the very first, no pressure, no pressure.
Okay. Wow.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for saying yes.
You're welcome.
Thank you for saying yes. So where in the world are you?
I'm actually in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay, very good.
Yes.
Very
Charlotte, North
good.
Carolina, home of the Charlotte Hornets, and we
Yes,
have the Carolina Panthers
yes.
here. We have the Harvey Gantt Center here. A strong multicultural hub, if you will. Over 1 million people live in Charlotte.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Traffic is something.
That
Yes,
is amazing. But you're right. I'm sure traffic is something with that many people.
it is. It is. Yes, it took me about a year to learn how to feel safe when I was driving, but Charlotte's a wonderful place. It really is. It's been good for me and my family. So
Excellent.
I invite everyone to come visit. Not me. Don't visit me, but come visit Charlotte if you ever have an opportunity.
If Shirley don't put you on a billboard or a commercial, they are
Okay.
missing out.
Oh well, okay, I'll take that, Crystal.
They need to put you in a commercial. Yes, ma'am.
I don't know. My introversion might kick in. I don't know about that.
Listen, I don't see it and I don't hear it.
Okay, that's skill. That might come up. That might come up in
Yes,
our conversation. Okay.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's get started on this. What
Okay.
does it actually mean to be a trauma informed coach, especially in executive and ministry leadership, that space?
So it means understanding how past experiences shape our current and present behaviors and our thoughts, especially when we're under pressure. So trauma informed coaching doesn't just look at performance, it also looks at the nervous system, our patterns, and our survival strategies that we've developed over time to help us cope in order so that we can become more successful.
Why
So
is
it's,
trauma?
yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to ask, why is trauma so often overlooked
Mhm.
with ministers, especially, but also with
Mhm.
leaders?
That's such a good question. It's overlooked because oftentimes high performers mask their pain. Success masks pain. When someone is successful, when someone is are able to be um, a clear speaker, a clear what appears to be a clear thinker, when someone is productive, right? When someone is committed, it's hard to recognize their times of distress because it's very easy to be foreshadowed by their success.
And I know several ministers, when
Hmm.
you do, and this is just personal
Hmm.
experience, when I
Hmm.
do ask about, if someone has passed away or trauma that has happened in their life,
Hmm.
they mask it with a joke,
A coping mechanism,
coping
right?
mechanism with the
Hmm.
joke, or
Hmm.
they completely change the subject.
Hmm. Because, people that serve often are uncomfortable receiving. They're more comfortable giving than receiving. So
Mm-hmm.
having someone actually call out something that may be happening in their lives that doesn't paint a pretty picture can be uncomfortable. It rattles the nervous system for a lot of us because we'd rather talk more about you.
Mm.
We'd rather talk more about you. It takes time and skill and opportunity to be able to rewire the brain and recognize that talking about ourselves is not a threatening situation, that it's actually safe. It's resilience to do so, but we don't often see it that way, especially because of how culture treats leaders, right? We're
Right.
expected to be superhuman, if you will, and it
Mm-hmm.
robs us of our authenticity and our vulnerability. So it has to be an effort that we ourselves take ownership of. No one can do that for us but us. So I think that's why you often see people who are in leadership tend to avoid hard things, not for you, but for themselves,
Right.
out of fear that the mask will be broken, right? That the facade, I shouldn't say that, but I'm going to say it,
Mm-hmm.
that what you see, you may not begin to see me as strong anymore if you
Oh,
know some of my
wow.
weaknesses.
Wow. Okay. That
Yeah,
really made a lot of sense to me. That
I'm
really
glad.
did. Yes.
Okay.
How does trauma show up in leaders versus
Mm.
the general population versus just regular people?
A lot of what we just talked about,
Mhm.
over control, avoidance, hyper vigilance, holding on to everything themselves and
Okay.
not sharing, survivalism. Although what survivalism looks like in leadership is more around having the ultimate control in situations, being able to control what other people see, being able, so we think, or being able to control how people experience us,
Mhm.
right? Not letting them see the humanness of us.
Right, right. Why is trauma informed coaching, what you do, so critical in leaders? Why is that
Mhm.
needed?
Because every leader needs a safe space, and trauma informed coaching provides that safe space where they can be their true selves, their true authentic self. I'm here as a support, right?
Mhm.
As to to help them create psychological safety for themselves, to help them get the tools to be able to coach themselves. And so they don't see me necessarily as someone who is trying to take their leadership away. I'm here to help them grow their capacity, not diminish it. Right. So the more we're able to regulate, the more we're able to practice self control, the more honest we are with ourselves, the bigger our capacity grows.
Mhm.
And leaders want to be successful. So something that helps them become their better self, their best version, that's what trauma informed coaching does. It gives them the opportunity not just to take care of other people, but to for once in the day or for once in that week actually take care of themselves and not feel bad about it, right? Not feel guilty for putting themselves first.
How does untreated, if I can
Hmm.
use that word, how does
Okay.
untreated trauma impact their decision making at the
Hmm.
leadership level as a minister? Or does it? That could be a
That's
loaded
a good.
question. Does it impact?
I thank you for saying that because not everyone is the same, right? Not one person's trauma isn't the same as another person's trauma. In general, fear-based decision making is what I see most often. So
Mhm.
instead of making decisions from a conscious place, it's more reactive, it's more automatic, it's based on what will keep them safe or what they feel most comfortable in saying or doing in that moment.
Mhm.
It's all about self-protection.
Okay. In what ways can trauma influence a leader's style of communication?
Hmm. So a leader who hasn't dealt with trauma,
Mm-hmm.
you may notice that person has a hard time listening
Okay.
because that person is generally trying to figure out what you're going to say next. They're always in problem solving mode. So they're looking ahead. They're trying to guess what's about to happen because that's how our nervous systems are shaped
Mm-hmm.
for survival, right? If we can guess what's about to happen before it happens, we feel more prepared. But research actually shows us that 85% of the things that we worry about never happen. And so we're wasting energy. You'll notice that a leader who is communicating may seem distracted, or it may be totally opposite. They're too perfect. They're
You
too
know,
perfect.
as you were talking, I was
Hmm.
thinking that must be exhausting. Like you're
Very good.
always, that's exhausting mentally and physically
Hmm.
because you're always expecting. And how do you deal with that? I guess that's where you come in. But how does a person
Hmm.
deal with that,
Hmm.
always thinking and trying to be ahead?
By reframing what resilience and productivity look like for themselves, by defining success for themselves.
Hmm.
Success isn't running ourselves into the ground, success isn't pushing through. Emotional resilience and success are around noticing when we're tired, right? Learning how to regulate ourselves in stressful, intense moments.
Hmm.
It is about taking responsibility, having greater self awareness. So the better we know ourselves, actually, the more functioning in a positive way we become. The less tired we are, the less burned out we will
Yes.
get, right? Because now we're prioritizing our well being, which includes rest, it includes protecting our peace. And
Hmm.
so if I'm in a situation where I need to protect my peace, but I may not have the language in that moment because I'm so consumed with everyone around me, then I'll learn how to notice when I'm feeling tense, when I'm operating in what's called hot brain. I begin to notice that my body is changing, right? That means my stress hormonal levels have they've done something and I need to pay attention. So as a trauma informed coach, I help leaders learn how to pay more attention to who they are. Not just look at symptoms, right? Don't just look at the ones that grab our attention, but to be
Hmm.
able to pay attention before something grabs our attention,
Right.
before we crash, before we get sick, before we fall out, or
Mhm.
before we behave badly and we speak with an aggressive tone, right? It's all about self awareness.
And that really leads into my next question.
Hmm.
What are some tangible ways that you coach leaders,
Hmm.
you coach ministers who
Hmm.
are normally the strong ones for everyone else
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
not for themselves? And it
Hmm.
sounds like to me that they would have a difficult time not being the strong one, not being the have an
Right.
answer to everyone's question and everything.
Right.
How do
Right.
you coach that? How do you help with that?
There are so many tools that we can use around cognitive and behavioral awareness. So the key is neuroplasticity. When we recognize that our brains are capable of being rewired,
Okay.
our brains are capable of creating newer connections, right? We're capable of change. And so some of the tools that I use include naming the thought. When you have an anxious thought, labeling that thought,
Okay.
then asking yourself, is that really true? Because what that does is it allows us to think differently. It allows us to not continue operating in what we call an autonomic pattern or automatic thinking. We then become more mindful. We're asking ourselves real questions, right? We're not just throwing a scripture on it for those who are in
Mhm.
ministry or those who are in secular leadership. We're not just throwing a methodology on it. We're not just throwing executive presence on it. We're actually taking time to practice self-awareness. Self-awareness is key in
Yes.
health and well-being.
What are some, this is a two-part question.
Okay.
What are some unique traumas common to ministers? And what
Hmm.
are some unique traumas common to your executive high-level leaders?
Whew, there's so much. There's so much. Moral injury is a common one. Moral injury is when you feel like you're having to make decisions that aren't aligning with your values,
Mhm.
and the effects of that are detrimental to your overall emotional well-being and can even impact us physically. Another one is church hurt, or what we might call spiritual abuse exposure. Um, Chronically overextending ourselves is another one that applies to both secular and church or ministry. The pressure to carry others' pain without support, right?
Mhm.
Without asking for help ourselves is another thing. So these are the what I find to be the unique traumas or the unique stresses that people in leadership tend to contend with.
Okay. And that would be the same for ministers and, okay, your executive level as well?
I would say so. I mean, maybe with the executive level, you might see more. We might label it more as overextension, but we
Mhm.
still see the pressure to carry others. Maybe not their pain, but we can say their work,
Right.
right?
Right.
Without support. We're not asking for help. The
Mhm.
uniqueness is not asking for help. And who can sustain that? That's not sustainable behavior.
At
So whether you're
all.
at all, say that, at all, it is not realistic. It's
Okay,
not realistic.
so with spiritual language,
Hmm.
how can that be used to bypass
Mm.
emotional healing? And by spiritual language,
Uh-huh.
for my community, I'm talking about when they, give you scripture or, invoke things in the name of Jesus. Not saying that those things are
Hmm.
incorrect, but
Right.
sometimes that can be used to bypass or not address the
Hmm.
emotional healing.
So there's something called spiritual bypassing, where you can throw a scripture on something so that
Mhm.
you don't have to deal with the pain. You don't
Mm.
have to deal with the emotional.
Yes, yes, that's what I'm asking. Yes.
Uh-huh. Would you ask your question again for me? What was the question?
How can that be a way to bypass the spiritual language? And really, it sounds like the language is in your answer. It's called spiritual
Hmm.
bypass. So how is
Hmm.
that used?
Putting a scripture on something rather than dealing with the issue itself.
Hmm.
So you just put a scripture on it. You're
Yes.
feeling tired or you're upset, so you throw Psalm 23. You know, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie
Hmm.
down in green pastures. But what if when you get to the green pastures, you don't know how to lie down?
Oh, yes.
So that's not helpful. I'm not saying take faith away. Faith is an instrument, right?
Yes.
It's actually a skill as well, but it should be integrated into our whole framework because we're whole beings. We're
Mhm.
not just spirit, we're body and mind as well. So it's
Yes.
important that we don't just have the spiritual language, but that we also know how to take care of our emotional well-being, that we know how to take care of our mental well-being, and that can include knowing when to rest, reframing, using growth mindset versus fixed mindset, in addition to having spiritual language, right?
Mhm.
It's not why is it, and forgive me, Crystal, if I'm going off here, but why is it that if we break a bone, then there's several steps in the process to heal that bone? But if
Yes.
we're broken spiritually, we just want to throw one scripture on it. That doesn't it doesn't make sense.
That is true. That is absolutely true. That is so true.
It doesn't make sense.
How is trauma informed coaching different from therapy?
So trauma informed coaching requires us to operate within scope
Mhm.
of the coaching model. The coaching model is about helping the coachee to grow their own capacity so that they can think forward, so they can learn how to address their own issues and challenges. It is
Okay.
not clinical, and so it doesn't diagnose issues at all.
Okay.
Therapy is, of course, it uses diagnostic tools. So therapy diagnoses what's happening. It
Mhm.
doesn't mean that in trauma informed coaching we won't talk about trauma. What it means is that as a trauma informed coach, I don't help you solve your trauma. I help you identify ways that you can manage your behaviors and your thoughts so that you
Yes.
feel more whole as you deal with your trauma. So oftentimes people are in coaching and therapy at the same time, and they work them parallel because there are benefits to both. They have
Mhm.
different approaches and similar approaches, but a lot of people actually use them together. I do. Full
Okay.
transparency. I use coaching and therapy as
Mhm.
a means for my own emotional well being. And it's been wonderful for me.
So, as a trauma informed coach, what boundaries must you maintain when working with these high level, high executive leaders?
Emotional containment is one, setting boundaries around my own well being,
Hmm.
recognizing when I am in what we call high alert or outside of my window of tolerance and taking a moment to pause. Another one is confidentiality. Another one is referring people to therapy when it's needed. So these are tactics, if you will, that don't just keep me safe, but they also keep the coachee or the client safe in
Okay.
these situations. Self regulation, right? If I'm not self regulated, how can I help you become more regulated? Water seeks its own level. So it's very important that as I enter into these client sessions,
Mhm.
I myself am practicing grounding skills. I myself am being mindful. I myself am making sure I stay hydrated. I keep water with me because hydration is important in self regulation. Or, I have something that I can look at whenever I need to recenter myself.
Mhm.
So, again, it is using tools for me as well as for others.
And I'm assuming those are the same tools you use to keep from getting emotionally attached, right?
Very much so. Very much. Very much so. Because it's easy to get emotionally attached.
Hmm.
When you have discernment, when you have empathy for others, when
Yes.
you have compassion for others, when you care about people, it can be easy to get attached. That's why it's important for coaches, especially maybe trauma informed coaches who are able to recognize patterns and thoughts and behaviors, that we don't take that on ourselves, right? That we don't allow what's called secondary trauma to permeate our lives, because it can, and it happens in ministry. It happens in secular leadership as well. You're leading someone who's going through something heavy and hard, and before you know it, you don't know where they end and you begin.
Hmm.
That's not safe for anybody.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm always having to maintain awareness
Hmm.
and recognize my own triggers, right? Recognize when my stress response has kicked in. Am I in fight and flight? Am I in freeze, or am I in fawning, which is people pleasing? Like, I have to notice when my behavior is out of balance or when I'm feeling like something isn't right. And instead of just pushing through it, right? In those moments, I choose resilience, which is to notice and that I have agency so that I can make wise choices and then carry on appropriately.
Earlier in the conversation, you were stating sometimes people need coaching and therapy at the same
Hmm.
time.
Hmm.
How can you determine when a
Hmm.
person needs both?
You can tell, we're trained to recognize how people regulate or
Hmm.
don't regulate. So someone who is unable to regulate themselves,
And by
someone,
regulate, you mean?
great question. For instance, there's emotional regulation and there's physical regulation,
Mhm.
right? So emotional regulation allows us to access our clarity and our calm, and um, it allows us to be creative and to use and practice wisdom. When we're dysregulated, those things become extremely difficult. And it's not just a matter of taking a moment and saying, I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to pause in this moment, which gives our bodies and brains a chance to cool off so that then our executive functioning comes back online.
Mhm.
It's not that quick. That's how I notice when therapy is probably going to be beneficial for someone because they're unable to do it for themselves.
Okay. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And there's no shame in it, right? So if I refer someone to therapy, we also normalize it because a lot of times, depending upon the culture and background that someone has, it's a shame, or they've heard negative talk that it's weakness to get therapy.
Mhm.
No, it's not. We're talking about growing your capacity. We're talking about increasing your productivity, right? We're talking about giving you back your true self. We're not talking about taking anything away from you or diminishing your strength. We're talking about giving you more strength, helping you grow.
Yes. Yes. Okay. How do you build trust with leaders, with ministry who are not used to being emotionally vulnerable? This was something we talked about earlier
Mhm.
on in our
Mhm.
conversation. They're not used to being vulnerable. They're not
Right.
used to showing signs of weakness to other
Yeah.
people. So, how do
Yeah.
you manage to get them to be vulnerable, to show you their weakness so that you can help?
Consistency is key. Honesty, transparency,
Mhm.
normalizing leadership not as a superhuman function, but normalizing leadership as humanness, as being a person with a leadership role, and using language around that, you know, not using language that creates this unrealistic environment that leaders are untouchable, that they never hurt, that they never go through anything, but instead asking reflective questions, asking questions that allow them to answer and give more data than just the succinct yes or no. A lot of times when you get later leaders to open up more, and then I use mirroring, so I'll mirror back what they've said, then they're able to hear themselves say, I'm not okay, but I'm not weak. And
Wow.
that's what's important. Not being okay doesn't mean weak. Not being okay means human.
Mhm.
It means human. And it's a simple awareness tool of recognizing what isn't working for us and then asking the question, what do you need in this moment? What do you need? And I use the word teach, but I guide clients to ask themselves that question often.
Mhm.
Ask yourself, what do I need? How can I give myself more peace in this moment? How can I get back my autonomy in this moment? How can I have a sense of agency in this moment? What do I need to feel safe in this moment? And it happens almost every time. Very rarely do I have a leader who's unable to go there,
Okay.
and it may take more time, but that's another part of the process. Process is different. It's okay if the first in our first session you're not feeling psychologically safe or secure enough to have open conversations. It's okay if it takes 4 sessions or 5 sessions. Now, I've had some that have taken a couple of months, to be quite honest. I'm working with one now who is still working through the process of becoming more open and vulnerable because in his culture, he comes from a different country.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to respect the fact that in his culture, you don't talk about certain things, right?
Right.
And so, although he understands, he's aware that I'm here, we can, I still will not push him past his threshold because I can create more harm that way. And that's not what I'm here for.
You
That was
know
my
what I'm
long answer.
No, that was perfect. You know what I'm thinking, and I don't know
What?
if you can answer this question because of privacy, but I'm wondering, do you have more male clients or do
Hmm.
you have more female clients? And the reason I'm wondering that is because most men, and I'll just be
Hmm.
honest here, most
Hmm.
men are ministers, most men
That's
hold
true.
the high executive leadership positions and title,
That's
but
true.
most women are more open to therapy than
Hmm.
men are. So I'm wondering, do you have more male clients? Do you have more female clients? Or is it like about 50-50?
When I started this work 8 years ago, very much so did I have more female clients. Now, however, the scales are becoming more balanced.
That's very good. And what do
Hmm.
you think that is
Hmm.
contributed to?
I actually think that this is one of the gifts that the pandemic gave us.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, During the pandemic, people spent a lot of time on their own and in isolation. And so they weren't able to use others to mask their own pain and their own discomfort. They had to actually spend time with their thoughts and their feelings.
Mm-hmm.
I think that has actually been a major contributor as to why I'm beginning to see both more during this day and time.
Okay. Well, that's good. I think it
Hmm.
needs to be both. I think it
I
needs to
agree.
be both. And I'm sure,
I agree.
absolutely you agree. So what changes do you typically see when leaders start addressing their trauma?
Oh, they become more free in expressing their true selves, more honest, more open. Communication is more effective, it's easier.
Hmm.
They're more calm in situations that normally would have like sent their temperature up, and cause them to operate outside of their what we call window of tolerance. And so when someone is outside of their window of tolerance, they're either hyper aroused or hypo aroused, and
Hmm.
those show up in different ways. So a leader who has been working on themselves and learning the tools is now able to be more motivated. They're now able to calm. They're now able to learn how to de-escalate problems, and they're able to be more creative. They're able to be more inspirational. They're able to lead from a place of balance and not fear. There's so many like benefits to to being healthy, to having well-being, and they're so happy, or maybe not happy all the time, maybe it's not the word, but they're able to access their joy and peace. They recognize there's a choice, that life doesn't have to happen to them. They actually have a choice to affect how they show up in life, and how life treats them. It's amazing. It's the highlight of this coaching journey for me,
I can
watching
tell.
people. I'm passionate.
Yeah.
I love it. I love seeing people heal. That's why I do this work. I was that person. I was that leader who lost her voice. And so me being able to help others find their voices and find their stride again is it's fulfilling for me. It means that my purpose is being fulfilled.
Mm.
And it's important, I think, to live out purpose, to live on purpose. It's important. And when you can help someone become more connected to who they are and their purpose, there's no stopping that person.
How do you know when to end coaching, or should there be an end to coaching?
Oh, that's interesting. I need to take a moment. Okay. How do you know when to end coaching, or should there be an end? Hmm. I don't think I've ever been asked this question. So let me think of some examples.
Okay.
It depends on the goals people are working on during coaching. Some people want to work on a goal, the goal of having a crucial conversation with their manager around their latest performance evaluation.
Okay.
That's the goal. So once we set the goal, talk about their current reality, then talk about opportunities they have to reach their goal, then we discuss what actions they're committed to taking. They take those actions, they get the result. They may say, okay, I'm good. I'm good now. Even in those coaching sessions, we can still identify stress responses, toxic responses, and we deal with those in the opportunities phase. Like, what's your opportunity, right? They can still address that through trauma-informed coaching, because one opportunity may be emotional regulation. When I'm speaking to this particular manager, I'm dysregulated. I'm unable to be calm. I'm unable to get my words out. So we talk about strategies, right? They use those strategies. They have the conversation again. They get the result and they're like, okay. And they may come back 3 months later.
Okay.
Now, I have other clients that I've coached for years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
For years, literally. And that is because they utilize coaching for accountability. Right? So they set goals for themselves. They like the idea of having an accountability partner.
Okay.
They have core values of learning and growing. So they're constantly learning and growing. And they're learning new things, or they're trying new things right there, and so they want that connection, because they may not be in the position yet where they have other support, or support is changing in their lives. They may be going through a traumatic event. And so they want a thought partner to go through that with them. And so they're consistent with their coaching journey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So how does trauma-informed leadership improve organizational health and staff retention?
Very good. So a trauma-informed leader recognizes that people are human and not robots. A trauma-informed leader takes into account that everyone has a past, everyone has had experiences, and those things show up in our thoughts and behaviors today. A trauma-informed leader is more empathetic. A trauma-informed leader practices active listening skills. A trauma-informed leader allows space for people to be wrong, for people to grow and learn. A trauma-informed leader doesn't lead from fear. A trauma-informed leader wants to see you succeed. A trauma-informed leader wants to see you free, because they understand themselves how being trauma-informed has had a positive impact on not just their lives, but others' lives as well. We reproduce after our own kind, right? So a trauma-informed leader begets trauma-informed leaders. And that's the generational shift that happens when you have a trauma-informed leader.
We all want a trauma-informed leader.
We do. We don't all have one, though.
We do not. But we all desire that.
We do. We all deserve that.
We
One of the
do.
basic human needs is safety.
Hmm.
And so when you have a leader who is not regulated or who leads from fear, who is controlling, who is uh, hyper vigilant, who is avoidant, what kind of environment does that create?
Yeah.
It's unhealthy. It's
Hmm.
hard. It leads to higher staff turnover. I
Yes,
heard something a long time ago. People don't serve the company, they serve the person.
it's true.
People leave companies because of people,
Yes.
for the most part. I mean, I know that's general,
Hmm.
but in general, people will give up their benefits if they've been under toxic leadership too long.
They will. They will. And I've
I've been
read,
there.
and I'm sure you've, read that most people do not leave or stay with companies because of the money.
That's absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. No, it's am I safe here? Can I
Yeah.
go to sleep on Sunday? Or am I
Right.
afraid for Monday?
Yes. Yes.
And there's so much we could talk about there and how
It really
dysfunction
is.
shows up in the body and
Hmm.
how it leads to burnout. But even beyond burnout, it can lead to hypertension, it can lead to neurological issues, it can lead to panic disorders. When someone stays dysregulated for a length of time,
Hmm.
it changes how our nervous system operates, and it actually shifts us in what we call sympathetic dominance. And so it's hard at that point. The Hulk is in sympathetic dominance.
Hmm.
Imagine being the Hulk all the time
Wow.
and the effect that might have on
Hmm.
us physically and emotionally and mentally. Where we want to be is Bruce Banner,
Yeah.
right? Before the big emotions come, before the fire starts. We want to be Bruce Banner. And for those who are, of a different age who may not know who the Hulk and Bruce Banner are, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry too. You missed out on a
Yeah,
great
watch the movie. Yes,
watch
because
the
they have a
movie.
new version. There's a new version out, right? It came out a couple of years ago, the Hulk. Or
There,
he's in the
yes,
Avengers
that
or
was a
something.
while ago. Yeah,
Okay,
there was a
okay,
new
yeah.
version that came out. That was a
Find
while
out.
ago. But I
Find
will
out.
say, stand on the whole Hulk Hogan train. Whenever
Uh-huh.
Bruce Banner goes into the Hulk and then comes back from the Hulk, do you
Uh-huh.
notice how he is always exhausted? He is
Talk,
always
Crystal.
tired. He is always breathing hard. He could barely stand
Talk,
after he
Crystal.
comes out of that formation.
Isn't that something? And that is how survivalism is counterproductive.
Yes.
He's surviving as the Hulk,
Mm-hmm.
but when you come out of it, you have to have coping mechanisms. And it takes time for our bodies to metabolize
Yes.
those hormonal stress levels, excuse me. It takes between 20 to 60 minutes for each event to metabolize through our bodies.
Wow.
So if you're working in ministry
Mm-hmm.
and you're not taking a break, you're not you're not eating, um, you're constantly in high alert, that is actually creating an unsafe and unhealthy environment that is going to take your body 20 to 60 minutes from every episode or every interruption or every distraction for you to recover from. And it doesn't start over. The clock doesn't start over with each one. It accumulates. Okay.
Wow.
That's why it's so important. It's so
Mm-hmm.
important to take care of ourselves, right? To be to be grounded, to be mindful, to have faith, and to also have abilities and skills that don't undermine our faith, but help to work with our faith so that we
Mm-hmm.
can have the lives that we're intended to have.
How
It's
do
one
you
thing. I'm
know?
sorry.
No,
Mhm.
go ahead.
Well, on the ministry side, I was going to say it's one thing to say that he'll never leave us nor forsake us, but what happens when we forsake and leave ourselves?
Oh, come on here now. Nobody talk about that.
No, but that's spiritual bypassing, right? I'm going through something. He'll never leave me nor forsake me. But what about how you're treating yourself in the moment? What are you doing for you? How are you helping you?
Mm-hmm.
What are you using with that faith?
Yes. Yes. Okay. How do you know when a leader, when a minister needs trauma informed coaching?
I think it goes back to recognizing patterns of behavior and toxic thinking. When someone's not regulated,
Mm-hmm.
now I think we framed it around being grounded, being mindful, able to be calm, right? Able to listen effectively and to be creative. When someone's not operating within that scope, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
they could benefit from trauma informed coaching to only grow their capacity, to strengthen what they have, right? Not to take away any titles or not to call them out, but to actually help them
Yeah.
become their better version, because we all get tired. We all need help sometimes. None of us were created to live this life alone. We were all created for companionship and partnership.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What has surprised you the most in doing this work with trauma informed leadership? What has surprised you the most in doing this work with ministers and leaders?
How lonely they are.
I never thought about that, but I bet you are right.
How lonely, not alone, because they can be surrounded by people all day, every day,
Yes.
but how lonely they feel. That has
Mhm.
surprised me. And the psychological and emotional and physical effects of that loneliness. Like you
Yes.
were talking about the Hulk, right? When the Hulk comes down out of that mode, you notice that he's exhausted. So, loneliness over a period of time, if we look at loneliness as being connected to avoidance, right? The reason why we're alone is because we avoid telling people how we really feel. We avoid telling people what's really going on with us. Back to your point at the beginning of our conversation, you ask somebody after they've had a death in the family, how are you doing? Or you try to check up on them and they shut down, they hold it close, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's actually a trauma response. It is freezing or it's flighting, right? Because we either fight, flight,
Right.
freeze, or we fawn, which is people pleasing. People pleasing can look like, I'm not going to tell them about what I'm going through because I just want them to be happy. And so over a period of time, this wears us down
Yeah.
and burnout is inevitable, right? Productivity decreases. So I hope I answered your question.
You did. And it,
Okay.
it spurred another question. So
Okay. Okay.
when you have your executive leaders
Mm-hmm.
that hold on to their pain, hold on to their trauma
Mm.
because they want to be perceived as the strong one, does it also teach other people not to check on them? Does it also teach other people not to say, how are you doing? How are you feeling?
There's a saying that we teach people how to treat us.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes,
Yeah.
we teach people how to treat us. If every time you ask me how I'm doing and I deflect, how long are you going to continue reasonably to ask me how I'm doing? Over time, we're creating patterns,
Yes.
right? We're teaching people that when you ask me this question, I'm going to respond this way. And so after a while, if that person isn't getting, if they're not helpful, if they're not feeling as though it's helping you, they're not going to continue to bother you at this point.
Right.
So going back to power, having that power, having that leadership title often masks pain. We
Mm-hmm.
use our titles to mask our pain. I'm this. And I don't know that a lot of us do it intentionally. I don't. I think it also is born out of an over responsibility for other people,
Right.
putting other people before ourselves,
Yes.
not wanting to burden others, right? Because
Yes.
they're coming to me for help. They have their own things to deal with. They don't want to really hear out how I'm doing.
Mhm.
I don't want to put that on them. But that is not healthy. I'm not saying that we tell everybody, because as leaders, you can't be, you can't share with
Exactly.
everybody, but there should be somebody. There should be somebody, and it's our responsibility to steward our leadership.
Hmm.
Two, we have a responsibility to steward and lead well. In order to do that, it requires support. No man is an island. No man or woman is an island.
Hmm.
That old hymn, no man stands alone. Each man's friend is friend to me. I mean, there's so many messages that we get spiritually to let us know not to live this life alone. But honestly, we get stuck in patterns and cycles, especially if we've tried to reach out to other people before and we've not been met with compassion, which goes back to that moral injury that we talked
Yes.
about a little bit earlier. You know,
Yes.
you reach out, you think, okay, I'm going to share with this person, and you don't. Instead of getting help, you get disappointed. And so that also teaches us not to reach out to other people.
Hmm.
So I would say, I would tell people who have a leader that they care about, don't give up on them. If you care about them, show them that you care. Keep asking the question. Let them know that it's okay to be human. Let
Yes.
them know that you care about their well-being. Let them know that they don't just have to see about everybody else, but that you're there to see about them too. Because leaders need that too.
They do. They
Yes,
absolutely do. Okay,
yes.
so what advice would you give leaders who want to lead well? And hopefully, all leaders want to lead well. Let me just throw that out there. But what advice, I see that face. What advice would you
You
give
took me
leaders,
somewhere.
yeah,
Hmm.
who want to lead well, but know
Hmm.
something beneath the surface still needs healing?
You can't heal what you hide.
Yes, ma'am.
And so if you want to lead well, you're aware that something below the surface needs healing.
Mhm.
It is then your responsibility to find the support, the resources, and tools that you need.
So it is their responsibility.
It is. Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. It is
Yeah.
an individual's responsibility to help themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So as we get ready to wrap up this
Mhm,
conversation, what is your
mhm.
intention in this space? This,
Mm,
the, in being in trauma, that just feels really heavy to me. And this is
mhm,
just me speaking personally. It feels really heavy to be
mhm,
in that space so much, helping other
mhm, mhm.
people with their trauma, listening to their trauma, helping them through their trauma.
Yes,
What is your
yes.
goal in this space?
To help the person get to the point where they are able to help themselves,
Hmm.
to help them lead from a place of wholeness so that they can lead well.
Yes. Yes.
That's my point. That's
I
why I'm
love it.
here.
Yeah. That's your purpose?
That's my purpose, to serve.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, my final question for
Mhm,
you: who do you
mhm.
think would make a great guest to be on the podcast? But you have to help me get them on.
Dr. Sydney Carroll comes to mind
Hmm.
because Sydney is a remarkable young woman who mentors others, who's a college professor, who is a licensed therapist as well as holds her PhD in education. But she does the inner work. She
Okay.
doesn't just give advice, she doesn't just pour out to others. She also has learned how to pour into herself. And so I think she'd make a remarkable guest for your podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being on this podcast. I
Thank
knew
you.
from our onboarding when we first
Mhm,
spoke several months ago that you would
mhm.
be phenomenal on this podcast, and you did not disappoint at all.
Thank you, Crystal. Thank
You did
you. Thank
not
you so
disappoint.
much. I appreciate you. Thank you for this platform. Thank
Thank
you for what
you.
you do. Thank you for how you do it. Thank you for your integrity. I've had an amazing time. I don't even know what I was worried about. What I worried?
I told you, everybody, you'll
I
be
was,
great.
that whole leadership overperforming thing, putting so much pressure on myself, wanting to show up and be the best. Thank you
Yes.
for just letting me be myself. Thank you for creating that safe environment. I appreciate you.
Thank you. And I receive that. I receive all of that.
Yes.
You are more than welcome. More than welcome.
Oh,
And to my community, thank you so much for tuning in and watching. You can get Macea's podcast and all of my other podcasts on YouTube Podcasts and Apple Podcasts. And remember, you always have time to listen and learn on the go.